Hey, Chris here with the Golf Aggressive Podcast, aka The Game. I'm here with Rich Guzzo, our tamed golf pro. I captured him on a beach. I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere in Australia, but there were a lot of dingoes running around. And I think maybe
I'm
Rich
surprised
was
you
raised.
survived.
Were
I'm
you raised
surprised
by
you survived.
dingoes?
You can't get close to me when you go for the dingoes.
I have a giant knife. This guy gave it to me. He was from Australia too. So I was safe. I felt safe down there. But the dingoes, Rich, did you learn anything from the dingoes about golf or life or anything you want to share with us?
Play fast.
Play fast?
Yeah, yeah. Don't be a slowpoke.
I think maybe you were raised by kangaroos. I've seen some pictures of you being attacked by kangaroos.
Yeah, you don't want to
Actually,
get too close to a kangaroo, especially when you pin it up against the lake.
can we maybe put that video into this podcast showing you being attacked by the kangaroo?
Yeah, probably
Do
not. We don't want to see that.
you have that video still?
I think it's more still photos. I'm
I,
not sure
I
if I
think
got it.
we're gonna put those in here. I would like to see
I don't think it's gonna happen.
those videos and photos will somehow appear in the golf aggressive world. So today our focus is how to break 80, the mindset that you need, and some basic tools that we think are pretty easy to do. And then we'll go over the 7 critical golf skills. So, Rich, why don't you tell me what you think uh, the biggest struggle people have with, it's just not breaking 80, it's breaking 190, 80 on
I think
down
it's
to
with
70.
any category that you go into. It's just basically having a plan, a strategy. Some people call it a blueprint. Just basically some guidance or a roadmap that will basically allow you to progressively get better. So there's a few things. I mean, we've talked about this on what you need to do right now. And if you're not doing these things right now, it's hard to see what you need to be doing. So, and we've talked about the range zombies as well. So, and Chris will go into that a bit more detail because, we see them all the time. They're just really there with no purpose, no plan. So a 30-minute, 45-minute session on the driving range.
They're seriously like zombies.
Yeah, I mean, it's a waste of time because there's nothing that they get out of it. And I know I've talked about it with you on sometimes when I go to the driving range, it could be just for a not necessarily a stress release. It's just that I enjoy getting out of the office. So and so I don't really have a plan. But if that's the case, I'm just getting out of the office just to get some fresh air and hit some balls, be on the golf course. The very least thing that the bare minimum that I will focus on is my pre-shot routine, making sure that it's consistent. Because if I can do that, if something clicks while I'm just hitting balls, that pre-shot routine will allow me to transfer it to the course. But
Well,
for
I
the
think
most
maybe
part,
you're different than the average golfer that can't break 80 or 90 in the fact that your brain is so trained on the proper way to practice that maybe you don't think about it.
that could be
It's kind of
so.
like how
Yeah.
I get into a car, I don't really think about it.
Yeah. You just floor it and spin the wheels and you're off, off
That's
you
how I
go.
drive. I roll.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the best thing about this is you can, eliminate those, wasted range sessions, and you can practice with a purpose. So if you're able to identify, uh, okay, it's really not my driving, it's more my, 180 to 220 range shot. You can focus a little bit more on that specific distance or club or shot pattern. So, but really, if you don't do the three things right now. I think, what are they? Tracking your stats, knowing your distances with each club, and then and basically that will allow you to practice the right way. If you aren't doing these right now, you have to
Yeah,
start.
there's three things that we've identified that are the biggest keys to getting over 190, 80. And number one is you need to know your stats. And the more stats you have, the better. But there's some basic ones that we have. And Rich, you have like a little scorecard method that you use. It would almost be better if they were to take all that information after the round and put it into a spreadsheet and then aggregate that information over 10 rounds. I would say 10 rounds. They're going to have some pretty good data because there's going to be all kinds of variety in there that's going to kind of average things out.
Yeah, 10 rounds is a good base to work from. And I mean, you can go anything from basics to fairways hit, if missed, left or right, which side did you miss? Because then you could sit back after 10 rounds and say, well, I've hit 60% of fairways. My 40% that I've missed, 38% have been on the left side. So there's that right there, a focus point on what you should be doing.
Yeah, and it's very specific. And it's almost like you watch these golf shows or you listen to pros and they're kind of piecemeal trying to fix everything. And I think if you do that, it's kind of like business. If you're multitasking instead of having laser focus on one business, one goal, one purpose, it's kind of hard to get anything done and excel at it. So what we're promoting here is that you take your golf game, you break it down into stats, and you identify the weakest of the weak.
Yeah. And then
absolute weakest thing.
Yeah. I would do then from once you've identified what that is. So for example, it's putting. You've got a fairly good, and this is the thing that might be a little bit difficult once you've got all the stat and the data, how to interpret that, because it could be where you're hitting, high 80s, 90% in the greens in regulation, but your putts are like 31, 32. That really isn't that bad because you're hitting a lot of greens. But if you're hitting 30% of greens and you've got 35 putts, right there, you've got a 5 to 10 shot difference when you can improve. So if you can get that stat down. So identifying how to measure what the stats are telling you, and then working on a specific area. So if it's putting that it is, and we'll show a video later that will help with putting. But if it is putting that you need to improve on, the session should break into time zones. So putting should get double the amount of focus, because you don't want to, my putting's my weakest point. I'm going to spend 3 hours on the putting green, and then that's it, and go home. So it has to be.
I mean, you can't abandon the entire plan.
But I do a double ratio. So if putting is my weak point and I need to spend a little bit more time on putting, if I spend 45 minutes on the range, I need to double that for the putting.
Yeah, and Jack Nicklaus, I always talk about what he suggests, and he's like, if things are good, he'll walk off the putting green, whether it's 5 minutes or 45 minutes. Once he's happy, he leaves the green. However, what we're going to teach you, if you do have a weak spot, we want you to spend a little more time on it, because we're going to give you some games and different drills and things like that to apply. But here's the thing: you have to completely tune out the Golf Channel. You have to tune out magazines. You have to just give that shit up, because I think you should work 4 to 6 weeks on any one of the 7 areas that you find as your weakest point. So let's just say it's putting. I'm going to say, look, use Rich's strategy of double time. So if you're normally practicing your putting 20 minutes, do 40 minutes. But here's the thing: that needs to be spread out over 6-week period, because you're not going to get any kind of mastery if you're just going to show up and do it 1 or 2 days. It needs to be a drawn out deal to where you're putting this focus into one specific thing over that amount of time. And not only that, as you play rounds, you're going to be able to see the progress. So, week 3 is, I guarantee you, if you put this, what we're teaching you into practice, you are going to see a major difference in week 3 than in week 1. And week 6 is going to be totally different. It's going to be dramatically better.
Yeah, most of these tips that you see, and the reason why we're saying to tune them out is because they're perceived as tips and people take them as quick fixes. So they will try and apply that tip. They don't see the result right away, and then they're on to the next one. And so there's nothing, you can get valuable information from this, from publications, TV, all this stuff. It's just how they apply it. And
yeah,
so,
it needs, these tips are great that they give, but they need to be plugged into the right point. So if you do see a tip on driving, but you're working on putting, make a note, write it down, but don't even mess with it. Just continue on with the putting. Give yourself a couple of drills, couple of pressure testing is a big thing too with all of this.
Yeah, I mean, if you get a tip, because if I was to survey 50 golfers and they get a tip from a golf magazine, what are the chances that they a plan and a 3-week, say 4-week plan on this tip to basically introduce it into their game? Most chances are, and I would say high 99% of these golfers, they'll try it once or twice. It may stick, and they'll continue doing it for a week or two. But majority of them, if they don't see that instant result, they give up on it. So if they're able to take a tip or any type of advice and put it in a plan that's over, say, 3, 4, 5 weeks, even 6 weeks, you'll see a better change in your game if that's applied that way.
Yeah. So basically, here are the 7 critical golf skills that we've identified. Number 1 is being fairly accurate 100 yards and in. And with these, we're not saying you need to be as good as Tiger Woods or Ricky Fowler or Ricky Fowler's girlfriend, but you need to be somewhat good. So number 1 is going to be 100 yards and in. Number 2,
I don't have these in any particular order either. I mean, they're all critical golf skills.
Yeah, think of these 7 items as buckets, and you're going to focus on only putting time into one bucket. You're not going to worry about any of these other buckets. I mean, you could if you have plenty of time, but if you don't, just focus on one bucket. So here's the 7 buckets. Number 1 is 100 yards and in. You need to be fairly accurate there. Number 2, find the fairway with your drives. And you don't always have to use your driver to do this to make it happen, especially on par 5s. Number 3, you need to be able to reliably get up and down from the edge of the green or a bunker. So the ability to save par close to the green. Number 4, which Rich is going to cover in today's teaching video, is eliminating 3 putts. So that really comes down to mastering distance control and being able to read greens. Number 5, shot making skills. So I played the other day and I played 2 balls. One was 1 under par and the second ball was 2 over par. And I didn't have a flat lie the entire time, and I was in the fairway most of the time. So you need to be able to hit different kinds of shots and be comfortable with them. Side hill, uphill, downhill, any of those. You need to be able to basically advance the ball safely. So some shot making skills there, and windy weather too. And number 6 is the mental game. And we've covered this before, where you need to have a plan before you even get to the golf course, and just stick with the plan. Don't get into the ego thing of, hey, you're going to hit that driver today? No, I don't need to because I can blast this 3-wood by you, Rich.
You
Number
stick with your
7.
3 iron.
I stuck with the 3-iron for a while until you gave me that 3-wood, which I love. Thank you. And then number 7 is fitness. And you're thinking, well, how does this fit in? Rich, why don't you kind of cover this? Because you've gone from, not being in great shape and now you're in tremendous shape. Why don't you kind of cover the benefits of that?
I wouldn't say I'm in tremendous shape. I've made some progress, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, the thing about the fitness element is you don't even know it creeps in sometimes. So I've known over time that if I'm feeling fatigued, my lower body shuts down and I start hooking it. Recently, I've been playing 36 a lot on Saturdays, and I haven't really felt fatigued in my lower body because I've done a lot of fitness to build up my leg strength. But I have noticed some distance changes towards like the last few holes when I'm playing on the second 18. So yeah, that's what we're trying to eliminate. And that's the thing. It's hard to determine when that creeps in. So if, you could be feeling fatigued on hole 8 and you're not even knowing it. And all of a sudden you hit a bad shot and thinking that it's a swing element. But really it's because something shut down on your body because you don't have that fitness level.
Yeah, it's almost like Tiger Woods a couple of weeks ago. I think that might have been what happened to him. Is like he wasn't used to standing up all day and practicing all day and walking the course all day, and it showed because he kind of locked up.
Yeah.
He was the hip or glute
Oh
activation
yeah.
or whatever.
The glutes.
Well, I hope that didn't happen with the Waffle House lady. His glutes didn't give out on him then. This is a joke. We love Tiger. But anyway, it really is a big deal. The fitness is something that you can do beside every other single one of these. And it's what we do in our challenges. It's, you owe it to yourself to give yourself 30 minutes a day. And Rich and I have talked about this in length. It goes so far beyond just golf. So if you're sick and you've put yourself in this position where you have diabetes or you're overweight and you have a wife and you have children, so what are they going to do if you keel over dead or you get diabetes and have to have your leg amputated? I mean, think about that. You almost have to put fitness at the top of your list over everything, over work, over family, because if you're not physically fit, you're not going to be able to take care of any of that stuff.
Yeah, and that's a tough one to really. It's a tough pill to swallow at first. So making an appointment and scheduling it is critical for longevity. You may get away with it.
It's an appointment that you don't break. It's just like you make an appointment to go to the doctor. They're going to charge you $150 if you don't show up. It's the same thing. You've got to take it with that kind of importance. But further than that, why can't you take care of your health but also improve your golf game? So that's kind of what we've built into our challenges. And I know that when you started to make your big transformation, it's when we had that discussion about, you've got to take care of yourself first. You have to put your health first, because you and I both have had parental units who, they don't take care of themselves. Both of my parents died. Your mother is sick right now or has been sick. It's very serious. It's something that you really need to think about. So that's bucket 7 is fitness. And, it goes beyond the golf game, but it will affect your golf game tremendously score wise. So Rich, before you started this, what did playing 36 holes feel like? Was that even an option?
I could do it. Well, I was in a golf cart too. So from that aspect, I can play 36. It's the fatigue that I feel immediately after the next day. It basically was a prolonged recovery process. Now it's like I'm back when I was in college. I can play 36 and follow it up with another 36.
Yeah, that's
I
no,
don't.
that's great. And I
Yeah.
remember when we went to South Carolina, you were like, before you're like, dude, we're gonna be playing 36 holes, you're gonna be wiped out. Because I wasn't playing 36 holes, I was
Yeah.
playing 9 holes. But
Yeah.
I tell you what, it didn't phase me at all
Yeah.
because I was in shape. I had worked out, I was in good cardio condition, I was strong. The only thing was, it's just the stretching after the rounds. I really needed to do that to take care of my body
You
because
know,
I got
the
used to it.
really good thing I like about playing 36 is training my brain to stay within the shot. Because once you start playing so many holes, um, it's very easy to get distracted, and it's very easy not to commit 100% on each shot. So, uh, what I've really liked and what I take away from playing 36 more than anything is that um, towards the last nine is how I stay focused on each of the shots, because that seems to creep in when things are off. And so,
Yeah,
so that's what I take away from it. Plus, I get to spend more time on the golf course, and so
yeah. Well, let's go back to the players last week, and um, I don't know if we could do like a before and after of Ricky Fowler, but I mean, like his just conditioning looks to be top notch, and he was able to come back out there and totally focus and dominate that. I haven't seen a final 9 holes and playoff like that in quite some time, where one guy was so hot every single shot.
yeah, yeah. And the funny thing is, I mean, we most golfers can't relate to how those PGA players play the course, but we played that course, and it was in February, and
Yeah.
so it's a totally different course from February to now because
Well, not only
it's
that, they had nets all over the tips, so it wasn't like we could totally match it up. But it
but
was
you got
close.
overseed fairways. The rough is a little bit thin, so it's not as thick. But the ball doesn't run out as far on the fairways. So we had easier shots in the rough. Didn't get as much rollout in the fairway, so we were playing back further. So yeah, it was
The thing I
impressive,
remember is the range, the grass. It was like hitting off of my kitchen floor.
and it was
It was
massive too.
There was no grass at all. It was like almost hitting off of dirt, but there's this
Yeah.
little teeny bit of grass. Great, great course. If you haven't been there, you need to go. I mean, I
The
think you
clubhouse,
gotta.
is what I really like too. I mean, it is just insane.
Yeah,
Uh,
you can do a tour of the clubhouse, and it was really neat because this old lady took us through there, and they have whoever wins, it's tradition that they give what they consider the club that helped them
yeah.
win.
Yeah,
And
so there's a whole stack of clubs.
most of them were wedges too, I noticed.
Yeah, I think Greg gave a driver. I remember it was a Cobra driver or
Well, of
something like
course,
that.
he's Mr. Aggressive Golf.
So, and then I guess they have a dedicated room for the champion. So when they return the following year, they get to do a champions dinner. So yeah, I
So
mean, they've
that
got
was
enough
Martin
space now.
Keimer this year, right?
Yeah, I think the year we went, we're coming off KJ Choi winning, so it was his room for the year.
Yeah, that's really neat. And it's a nice room, but I mean, they take you through the entire clubhouse, and it's huge. It's absolutely huge, and the restaurant there is great too. But to get back on topic, so let's give you an example of how to put this into practice now, and then we'll get into Rich's video, and then let him summarize it up, and then we'll wrap it up here. So, on our scorecard, let's just imagine I'm shooting 83, 84, which is pretty good, and I'm on the edge of breaking 80. So I do my stats, I look at my stats, and I realize I'm having 35 putts per round. And then I look further and I realize that my wedges are putting me, X distance away. However, I've got three putts per round. So what I'm going to do is I could go two ways. I could go wedge, try to get those closer, or I could go to putting. And I'm going to choose putting because I think it's more important. If you can eliminate those three putts, and not only that, but by improving your putting, you're going to improve it all the way in. So all the way out, back in, you're going to get better. So Rich, why don't you kind of give us a strategy on that, and then kind of explain in your video that we're about to show.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say just work on putting. I would work on confidence, because that's what it takes, especially on putting. And the video covers on how to become confident within 6 to 15 foot range, because that's your go-to zone. Whether it be you've hit it to 15 feet for birdie, or that's what you've got a 10-footer left for par. This is where, you could have
which is common to have that putt that's outside of your comfort range for par. I had several of them the other day and I missed a few.
So if you have a birdie putt for, it's a 40-foot putt, and the chances are you hit it to 10 feet, the 10-foot putt is what you want to make. That really keeps the momentum going. It makes you get a par, and then moves on to the next, feeling good about your game. So the video gives you 4 or 5 different options that will build your confidence. So I'm not saying to do just one particular drill. I want you to pick one that works with you and spend, I would say, in a minimum of an hour. But what I want to do is set a goal. So if you take the chalk line, or you take the putting stick if you have one, or you take the string, set a goal to make a certain amount of putts in a row, whether that be 20, whether that be 50. If you miss, it resets. You got to start again. And what one of these will do is instill confidence, because you see that ball track on the line when you got the chalk line down, and it consistently goes in, and it goes in, and it goes in.
Yeah.
That will build your confidence, and it will transfer to the golf course. Once you get over a 10-foot putt, all you're thinking of is back of the hole. So the video will give you 4 or 5 different options. Pick one that suits you, set a goal, and then if that goal is 20 putts and you're knocked out in 5 minutes, do it again. Try and spend at least an hour on this a week for a prolonged period, say at least 4 weeks.
And then move on to another drill.
And then move on.
Week 2. And then another drill for week 3. I would say a bare minimum of 3 weeks of just focused practice on 15 feet and in. So you have a couple of different things in the video. So we're going to cut to that right now. And then Rich will come back and he'll summarize it for you.
Rich Guzzo here with golfaggressive.com, and this week's focus is on your moneymaker. Chris likes to refer it as the father flat stick. Moneymaker is a good one because this is your scoring zone, 6 to 15 foot range. And I'm not going to be working on any technique. You can do whatever you want. What we want to instill with this session is confidence. So I've got 4 stations set up here. You're going to want to pick one that works best for you and then set a goal. So I'm going to work on the putting stick, and I want to make 20 in a row before I move on to my next one, or I want to make 50 in a row and just leave it with that particular drill. I've got a putting stick set up. I've got two tees basically just for guidance to make sure I'm not moving off the ball with my stroke. I've got a putting string, and that's good for alignment as well. And then I've got a chalk line, my favorite. So you can set up, ideally it's, I want to start with a flat lie, but sometimes that's not always possible. So I've got left to right, fairly straight, and fairly straight on these two. So it works good for me because I want to build confidence in my left to right putting break stroke. So this is what I'm going to focus on. So let's go around the circle. So with the putting stick, I've got a pretty sizable break here left to right. And really if you do have a putting stick, the great thing about this is that you can work on not just alignment on any putt and move it around, but you can see if your eyes are across the ball because there's a slight mirror. So my goal here is I want to spend a good hour each week on perfecting one of these, because if I can get confidence in this range, this is where I'm going to see my scores dramatically decrease. So with the putting stick, I'm just really focusing on keeping my head still and nice smooth stroke. You'll see instant feedback right away off the stick. If you've pulled it, it'll go off the stick to the left. Same if you pushed it. So the 2T drill, This doesn't necessarily help on alignment as much, but it really, if you've got a wobbly stroke, it'll really get that going on a better plane. So again, you want to do at least 20 minimum in a row before you move on. And there's our first one. So putting string is also very similar. This one's got left of center, but it's a fairly straight putt. Now, good thing about this one is you can place the ball right over the string, and then you can see your alignment with your putter and that line that you want. Because one of these ones that fits your game best is going to build confidence in your stroke. So when you go to the golf course and you're left with a 15-footer, whether it be for par or birdie, you want that confidence, that instilled. So I would sit here and do, on the string, I would like to do 50 in a row. It's fairly simple. And then the same thing with the chalk line. Chalk line is really good at really visualizing the line. So you can set up and see it, just track the line the whole way through. Another good thing to implement is grab an alignment rod. Depending on your speed on your putts, if you find that you're leaving a lot of the putts short, put an alignment rod about 6 to 10 inches from the hole and putt at the hole with a bit more pace. If I do this right, it should just hop straight over that alignment rod and go in the hole. Boom. See, so if you find that you're leaving a lot of putts short on the course, stick the alignment rod 6 to 10 feet from the hole, and that will definitely get the speed going a little bit more. So I've got 4 stations here. This week I want you to focus on one of them and spend an hour. So if that's 20 putts in a row and it takes you an hour to do them, because if you miss one, you're going to reset the clock. So pick one that works with you, spend an hour at minimum, and try and do that 1 or 2 times a week. And that way we get that confidence going in your stroke. That way your moneymaker can transfer over to the golf course and lower in your scores.
Okay, so we're back now, and then Rich, you had some other items you wanted to bring up to help them.
Yeah, so I mean, we want to do this for a prolonged period. So find the one that builds the best confidence. So if you find you pick the string, you've got the string running across the ball to the line, but you don't hole as many putts with this, switch it up. Go to chalk line, go to the 2 tees, go to the putting stick. We want to pick one that sees the ball go in the hole. We just want to build that confidence and continually do this for, say, we're going to do, say, 4 weeks right here, once a week for at least an hour. Another key point is if we're spending an hour on the putting green, I want at least 30 minutes with your other game. So hit some golf balls with your driver, your irons, chipping. Don't give up that, and then try and play a couple times a week. So this will give us a good base to see how we can improve upon the putting.
Yeah, keep tracking your stats during this whole process because we should start to see some improvement.
Yeah, I think let's get back to that. Let's get back to that when it comes to the stats. So we can do basic stuff, and I think I covered a few things. So we can do fairways hit, fairways missed, left or right, greens in regulation, and then we can do how many chips we had, how many up and downs we had, sand saves. So like if I hit it in the sand, I would write an S. If I got up and down from the sand, I would circle it. So that's a good way of tracking the sand saves. I'd like to go further so that you can identify common misses, common leaves within the green, but it could get a lot technical.
We also have a podcast on this too. It's how to plan Assess and Practice. It's one of the earlier podcasts that we've done. So you might check that up and hit that up.
Yeah. So at the very least, start with the basics to give you some information. But once you've kind of gone through the basics and eliminated or kind of pinpointed what you need to work on, then you can go in a little bit more detail. And I know I've talked about, like Game Golf, and then there's R-Cross. There's these devices that allow you to track, your how far you hit clubs, which way you've hit it, and it pulls it up on a GPS map. Those are great tools as well, not cheap. But I think you can do just as well, just making a few marks on your scorecard, put them into a spreadsheet. But if you have the money and you want to invest in some of these other GPS devising tools, by all means.
I think those are good because they track your distances.
Distances,
that's hard to do with
direction, you get a visual.
Scorecard.
Yeah, you get a visual on a map. So there are definitely a lot of benefits out there. And I think the great thing about those GPSing Bluetooth mapping tools is if you look at the PGA Tour now, and they've got that stat, that putts gain stats, the algorithm that goes into that is hard to do on your own, because we don't have the stats guy recording every single shot that we hit that they can plug into their device, and it shows you exactly what we're doing. So in order to do putt strokes gained, the strokes gained putting stat, you have to really look at all areas of your game and recording, like how far did the drive go? Did it go left or right? What's the distance? What distance did you have in? What club you hit? So the algorithm that goes into it will make your head spin if you were to do it manually. So yeah, I would look at that.
A pretty good investment over, say, like a one of those machines that tells you how your smash factor and all that crap.
Yeah, like a launch monitor. I mean, those are for practice facilities type stuff. So to take it onto the golf course, the GPS tracking tools are probably the best one. But you don't need to do that right away. Look, identify just the basic stuff, which you can do easily from your scorecard, transfer it over to a spreadsheet, and then once you've identified those areas that you need to work on, and then you've mastered them, and then you find, well, I don't know what else to work on now. That's when you can start breaking it down a little bit more. And it could be, your greening regulations are like 50%. How do I get that up? Well, I need to start tracking, my club distances, what club I hit, and which way were I missing, and what were my leaves, because then we'll give you some more information. So starting out, the basics is going to give you the tools to basically assess what you need to work out, and then from there move on and dig a little deeper. So,
yeah, I agree. So it really comes down to stats, and then figuring out which bucket you want to work on out of the 7 buckets. We've said you can work on several at the same time. We recommend 1 bucket and then a bucket of fitness. You've got to get your fitness under control, and you don't have to look like, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, but you can make some serious improvements in your physical health and performance just 30 minutes a day. Yeah. So make that appointment, get out there. I can't stress how important it is. And not only that, it helps you think better. It gives you more confidence. You like the way you look better in the mirror. So for the ladies, so you can go out and you can find yourself a Ricky Fowler supermodel, bikini model. Rich, you've done that. Didn't you used to date her, Ricky's girlfriend?
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
Wow, that's all I can say. I can't believe she was okay. He's about to win one of the biggest tournaments next to a major, and then she's out there in like no clothes at all. I think her pockets were even longer than her shorts.
That's the generation that we're not really attached to these days.
Should we complain about that, or should we applaud that?
That's the way it is these days. So
I guess it depends on who's wearing those shorts.
Yeah, that's it. No, I think if we going back to what we've talked about on this session, we've given you guys a purpose, but also a plan. Because I think the common thing we see is we don't want you to waste your time. So, when we give you a fitness program, they're short bursts, they're very focused, and you're not doing stuff that you don't need to do. And then when you identify what you need to work on with your golf game, you can get out there, practice with a purpose, and feel like you've accomplished something. Because I don't, it's endless times that I see people on the range that really
zombies.
the zombies. Yeah, I mean they've got 30 minutes they want to kill. They go hit some balls, and you see them walk off going like this.
Yeah, they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so they feel like they have to go hit balls, but they walk away like, I don't know what happened.
Sometimes worse.
Yeah.
So, here's the deal. People that listen to this podcast, they're professional guys. They're driven. They have succeeded in life or are working their way up the chain of success. They don't want to screw around and waste time. I mean, that's the one thing you can't get back. You can always get money back, but you can never get time back. So why are you going to want to waste your time?
Yeah. I mean, cut it back. So say I've said an hour. I mean, if we really want to improve our scores, you do have to put the time in. But if you don't have that time, break it down. Spend 20 minutes on putting and then go hit some balls for 5 minutes, but have a plan. And that way you go in, get it done, and get out. Because, we've talked about Jack Nicklaus, who'll go, and there's actually a lot of players that do this. They won't spend a lot of time practicing. One, they don't like it. They rather just go play. But two, they don't need to. They've got this idea of what they need to do. They go out there, accomplish it, and be done.
Well, that's what Claude Harmon said. And this is kind of where, the biomechanics stuff, which I love the science of it, but I think it might be hurting the guy that can't break 80. The
average golfer does not have to worry about that.
They don't need to worry about biomechanics.
No. I think the average
actually playing the game.
Yeah, the average golfer has to clear their head. If you look at it, I mean, those range zombies, they're not doing their pre-shot routine. They're thinking of 100 things in their head over the ball. And so it's the same thing. If you try and apply that same mentality on the golf course, what happens? I mean, you're never going to hit a good shot. You're thinking water right, out of bounds left. The ball's going to go. Ball's going to go one way.
That's what we're trying to do here is simplify the game for you and not make it so complicated, because when you start adding in the complication, that's when things go haywire. That's when you start to regress. That's when you get frustrated. So work on simplifying things. Simplify it with time by practicing better with more focus. Get in, get out. Then go play. Go out and enjoy yourself. So anyway, that's I think we're going to wrap it up here. I think one of our longer podcasts, but I think it's one of our better ones too, most important ones.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if they don't have a plan of attack, this will definitely give that to them and really give them a focus to improving their game and breaking 80.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Chris, and I'm here with our tamed golf pro rescued from the beaches of Australia, from the clutches of dingoes and kangaroos, Rich Guzzo. And that is the game.